Gemma Barnett, who was the actress who played the role of Rory in 100 Words for Snow, both I guess what we would call off Broadway in the Vaults in London, and then also went with it when it transferred to the West End, to the Trafalgar studio. So Gemma, thank you and welcome to Burning Coal.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
It's our pleasure indeed. I'm going to give a little bit of a description of who you are, just so people have an idea, as well as 100 Words for Snow. Gemma studied at Oxford University and also at the University of East Anglia, which identifies itself as a public research university. It's in the sort of north and east of London, over by the water. Gemma won the 2020 Offie Award for a female performance in a play for her performance of Rory in 100 Words for Snow at the Trafalgar Studios. She's also played Hermia in an outdoor touring production of A Midsummer Night's Dream, Cinderella. She's appeared at many theaters around London, including the Camden People's Theatre, one of my favorite theaters in London, the Park up in North London, the Bunker, the Soho, and many others. She's begun to develop a bit of a film resume for herself as well. And finally, maybe not finally, but including work as a poet as well. She's begun to write poetry and to make it available online. So Gemma, you're new to the business. You're out of university. You've had this huge success right out of the gate. And then comes the pandemic. So the first question to you is, how are you handling that? What are you doing? What are you planning to do?
Oh, God. Yeah, I think it was, to be honest, it hit me really hard to begin with. I think predominantly because it felt like I'd spent, since graduating from drama school, it felt like I'd spent kind of 3 years slowly building up momentum. And then I pretty much had the best year of my career. And I actually went to those awards and won that award a week before we went into lockdown. So I had a week of like a bit of interest and auditions coming through, and then just nothing. But I actually think it's been a really useful thing for me to have happened in terms of figuring out how to stay creative when you're completely out of control of those projects. So like you said, I've started writing quite a lot. I did a program with the BBC and a production company called Apples and Snakes, which predominantly work with like spoken word artists. And those workshops were happening throughout lockdown, which was just something I really looked forward to every week. And then I'm starting to write my own plays and have just applied for funding for one of them. So I think those sort of things, taking creativity into your own hands, is definitely the way to cope with existential angst, I think.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And Taddy, who you worked with on this show, is not much older than you, I wouldn't imagine, and so she's in the same boat. I want to talk just a bit about the play itself. This is a new play, and it is different. Like, it's much different to play, and I would imagine to play a new character that has just sort of popped out of the imagination of a young writer than, for instance, Hermia, where there's a lot of sort of blueprints along the way that you could potentially turn to. Is that true? And how do you handle working on a new character that you're creating versus a character that has already had many different manifestations?
Well, I kind of prefer it, to be honest. I think most of the work I have done since graduating has been with new writing, and I find, you can bring new interpretations to old characters as well. In any female Shakespeare role, you can make your own. But I think there is such a gift with being handed a new script and knowing that you're pretty much the original person to be playing it, because you can truly embrace putting aspects of yourself into it. And I think I was also really lucky with the director, Lucy Jane Atkinson, who really was keen to make everything feel as sort of authentically my own as possible. And I guess we had so many discussions at the beginning of rehearsals about my own teenage years and what it's like to be a 15-year-old girl or a 16-year-old girl, and grief, I guess. And I just think I found it actually a gift to be given that role and not to have to look at any other actors that have played it before. It was something that was my own. And I think as well, because of the way it's written, it's so well written that a lot of it feels very conversational. So I would be doing the script with the director, and the more she had one technique where she would break the script into sort of beats and sections, and we'd look over the script and everything that had to happen in that beat, and then she'd take the script away from me and I would just have to improvise it. And I had to just hit certain notes, but everything else was kind of in my own voice. And I think that was the whole approach to this play. It was to make it as much or it was to make it as believable to somebody else that I was Rory. And it felt very much, I mean, towards the end of the play, I didn't know if I was more Rory than I was myself. So
well, I was going to ask, and you had the luxury, I guess, of working with the playwright as well as a really terrific director. Does it begin to feel like you're becoming part of the character, or that the character is becoming part of you? And does the playwright support that idea? Does a playwright typically support that sort of idea, or do they want to keep it what they had originally imagined it, or how does that work?
I think it was a healthy balance. Tati was very specific about how she liked things being said, and she was very specific.
Right.
But at the same time, because the three of us worked together, I mean, it was on at the Vaults for a year before it transferred. So we were essentially with this play and me in the production of this play for that year. The Vaults, a whole year, me touring it around the UK, and then the month of it being at Trafalgar. So I think it also grew and developed throughout that time and the longer we had with it. But I think, it actually, Tati and Lucy together were a really good combination, because Lucy was very aware of me feeling creatively involved in the role. So a lot of my own suggestions were taken on board, and she was very loose in terms of blocking. It was more about making me feel as invested and in this character as possible, and then she sort of it was free reign for me. Whereas Tati would come in, and Tati wasn't in the rehearsals a lot of she was barely in the rehearsals actually. Okay. But she'd come to kind of dress rehearsals, and she'd come and see like a few runs before we'd gone on, and then would give specific notes about certain lines that she wanted delivered in a different way. So I think she was a perfect combination of being specific but allowing us the freedom to play with the language as well.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
So, yeah.
Nice. And that's got to be an interesting jump for you. I've not been in the Vaults myself, but I imagine that's a much more confined space than the Trafalgar 2, which, what is that, maybe 250, 300 seats, something like that?
Well, actually, no, Trafalgar 2 is a really intimate studio space, which really sadly has gone now.
Yeah.
But it had a very similar feel to the Vaults. Okay. I mean, the Vaults, you've been to the Vaults, haven't you?
I have not, no. I know they exist.
Yeah, it's quite something. It's like sort of dungeons and like underground, and it's amazing. I have the best time at Vault Festival every year. But in terms of the actual space that I was performing in, they both felt very similar. There were like, the audience were on three sides, and it was very intimate. So the whole show kind of, and I think, again, this was such a lovely thing for a one-person show, because the only relationship you have really is with the audience. And I was very, very, the audience felt very present to me, which meant that the whole thing felt almost like a sort of stand-up-y storytelling, because I was really reacting or responding to how they were each night. But the two venues were actually pretty similar. Yeah, on the tour there were much bigger venues, which was, it was wild how much the show could change dependent on the venue.
The sound coming back to you if you're in a big space. Did the audience change when you moved to the West End space? Did you feel like there was a different kind of response coming back to you?
It varied on the night, to be honest. There were shows that felt like really, really sad, and there were also shows where I could engage if people were with me, if they were really with me. And then I'd get to sort of the last 20 minutes, which is where Rory really just feels the intensity of grief. And the people with kind of stony faces the whole way through would be weeping. And I was like, oh, I did have you, but you were different to last night, for example, where the first sort of half hour felt like a full-on comedy, because it was sort of like laugh after laugh after laugh. So, but I think as well with a one-person show, again, that's a gift, because otherwise it can start to feel stagnant if you've done it so many times. But because I was getting these different reactions every single night, and on one night it felt like a very intimate, sad tale of grief, and then another night it felt like the funniest sort of teenage angst story in the world. It really varied.
And do you have, as an actor, do you have I don't know if tricks is quite the right word, but methods or tools that you use to keep a piece fresh, doing it over and over like this, and without any other actors to kind of keep it fresh with you?
That's a good question. I don't have tools. I think a big lesson I learned doing this show was essentially that, and something I got taught at Oxford as well, was once you've done all of the preparation that you possibly can, you then have to leave it. You have to completely leave it at the door. And I think this show really challenged me to do that, in terms of not trying to hit a certain point that I'd hit the night before, unless it just happened. So I think for me, what's really important is having a solid warm-up beforehand, to just be in my body. And I had a playlist for Rory as well that I'd listen to every day. But I think the most important thing that I had to like remind myself of was that it was going to change, and that was okay. And actually, pretty much once I'd accepted that I might not cry at the same moment every single night, the tears would come. They would just come at different points. So I think it was just being very, very present. And I guess when you've got a sort of hour and 20 monologue to do, it's a lot easier to warm into that than it is if you've got a 2-minute audition and you have to cry on cue. So
I'm so glad you said an hour and 20 minutes. I read a number of reviews of the play that described it as an hour and 10-minute monologue, and I could not get it to an hour and 10 minutes.
I don't think we were an hour and 10 either. I definitely think we were at least an hour and 15.
Both of our actresses, we're splitting the role between two actresses who are alternating performances, and they will both be delighted to hear
oh, good.
that. So she's an interesting character, and she has a lot of kind of very, it seems to me, very specific interests that I would guess are not the interest of the average 15-year-old girl today. Did you feel when you first met the character, when you were first thinking about the character, did you feel like there was a big distance between who she was and who you are? And if so, how did you bridge that gap at all?
Mm. Um, I think, I mean, I for one knew absolutely nothing about Arctic explorers.
Yeah.
So that was something that was very different. But I think there was like an intensity to her and a thirst for knowledge, or like a thirst to throw herself at things, which I definitely recognized. But for her, it was like Arctic exploration.
And dead beardy men,
Dead beardy men,
which is
completely.
not the average 15-year-old girl is not particularly interested in that sort of thing. And I don't know, I find it a really interesting character. And I'm just curious to know if you got interested in any of that stuff as a result of playing the character. I know I'm sure you researched it, but did it become a part of your life, a part of your interest?
Yeah, completely. I mean, we met Felicity Aston, who was, I mean, she came to one of our performances and did a after show talk. And I think, I mean, Lucy, the writer Tati and director Lucy were absolute kind of Arctic exploration fanatics. They were very, very into all of that. And I found it fascinating whilst I was doing it. But I think the thing that interested me the most was like human fascination with like really, really going to the end of your limits, like, or like pushing yourself to such extremes. That's what I found really. So meeting Felicity and knowing that she had achieved those things that you would think were humanly impossible, that really fascinated me. And I mean, some of the anecdotes within the script I read up on more, and the things like the shit chisel and Peter Frauchen and those things, I think I found absolutely wild. And because I had really invested in them kind of outside of the show, I think that intrigue and passion for them came across in the performance as well. Am I like, I wouldn't say I'm a Arctic explorer nerd, no.
So
But
the three of you didn't at any point say, "Let's do it."
I mean, Tati has traveled. She traveled the path of Rory as
Ah,
she was writing the show.
wow.
Um, so she's got much more of a connection to, I guess, to Norway and all of the places that she talks about in the
Yeah,
script.
yeah.
And I think I would absolutely love to go there now, having done the script and feeling like I have so much knowledge on like very random bits of information. I would really love to travel there now.
Yeah, me too. So, a hard question. This is a hard question. There have been things happening across the world, across the Western world, particularly in the summer of 2020, that call into question some of the degree to which we do celebrate some of those old dead beardy men, and some of their not only their behaviors, but just their way of looking at the world and their way of looking at other dissimilar people in the world. Has that changed your opinion of the play at all, or has it caused you to think about how it might be done differently today than it was done a year or two ago?
That's a good question. I think the thing about the play, and the thing having spoken to Tati about it, the thing that rings true for me in this play is that she's taking the legacy of these old white beardy men and giving it to a 15-year-old girl. And I think, yes, Rory talks about their journeys a lot, but the person that we're invested in is her journey is what we're following. Her like epic sort of coming of age is what, as an audience, we're seeing and we're feeling. So I think actually the play almost says we can acknowledge the past and the achievements of historical people whilst giving it to the current people that need voices more now. And that for me is why I think this play like will hold true for a long time, because like who takes a 15-year-old girl seriously? I never felt like I was taken seriously. And I think that's what this show does. It looks at those legacies and it gives someone else a chance to tell theirs, which, yeah, for me is what is lovely about it.
In some ways, the shit chisel story is kind of the perfect metaphor for the larger view of the play, taking something really kind of disturbing and using it to find a way out.
Yeah, completely.
Which is interesting. Gemma, what do you see next for yourself as an actor? Do you think of I mean, there's a political element to this play. It seems like a big shaggy dog story in many ways, but I said on an interview here yesterday with our local NPR affiliate, I said that I thought the play was about a young girl who woke up one day and realized that the past generation had not entirely succeeded at their goals, and had realized that if it was going to happen, she was going to have to do it herself. And that's a pretty timely idea. As an actor, is does it lead you toward a more political view of your own work and what you hope to accomplish, or was that already there? How did it get there?
Yeah, I think that has always been there for me. I think the reason I have always loved and participated in theatre is because I genuinely believe it's very important, and I believe stories are incredibly powerful in the shared live experience of telling them. And I mean, my university was very big on political theatre, so that was a big thing we studied and spoke about a lot, and I've always created my own work. And I think I've been really lucky in my career that the majority of things I've done, I've had a political or social investment in, whether it's, I mean, with Rory, for me, it's a story of grief and changing times and a girl loving her dad, and those things all rang very true to me. Some of the other shows I've done, I came out of a show at Leeds Playhouse before we went into lockdown as well, which was called Dr. Korczak's Example, about the Warsaw Ghetto in the Third Reich. And again, that was a story very close to me as well. So I think the shows that I've had the best experience doing are always the ones that have been political. And I'm not interested in playing the girlfriend of characters anymore and reading shit writing that has like awful tropes for women. I would rather create my own work now in the way that you were saying about taking it into your own hands and tell stories that I feel like are important, than just be playing nothing roles. That's where I'm at the minute.
Yeah. And do you see that happening in the near future? Do you have any sense of what it's like in London right now? And there's so many theaters there that there is an opportunity for a young person to find an audience and to find a company willing to produce their work or help them produce their work. But is that in jeopardy now because of the pandemic, or do you think it's going to come back full?
Oh God, I don't even know. That's what I mean. I don't know, but I have hope that it will. What I really hope doesn't happen is, in order to, because obviously when theatre comes back, they're going to need to sell a lot of tickets. What I hope doesn't happen is that they go safe, which means that they program the same kind of work with the same names, the same kind of celebrities, which I do see happening quite a lot. And that for me is really boring and worrying. But I guess I guess I have hope that there'll be more opportunities, and with the current like political climate as well, there'll be more of a hunger to tell these specific stories.
Are you planning things? Are you talking with people about things?
I am currently writing a show that I have applied for funding for, but who knows if I'll get it. But again, it's so, I think everything the same with anywhere really. It's very uncertain at the minute. There's not a lot going on theatre wise. I've just shot a short film, which was a great 2 days, but film and TV seems to be sort of continuing, but theatre really does feel like it's in jeopardy at the minute, which is really sad, to be honest, because I think that like live experience is what we really need as a society right now.
You guys, your government did announce, was it $1.5 billion, I think, for the arts in England. I think it was on the same day that the U.S. Government announced their new military budget of $780 billion.
Oh, God.
I heard the first number got me really excited, and then the second number was like, well, that puts things in perspective. We're going to wrap up. Is there anything you'd like to say to anyone about, anybody listening, about Rory, or about the play as a whole, or about your experience working on it?
No, I'd be really happy to answer questions if people want to email me or reach out on social media. If anyone has specific questions, I guess what I would say is, at a time of kind of, I think grief is quite rife, and I think this is a really wonderful story in terms of hope, and knowing that as hard as grief is, things do get easier, and just the power and resilience in all of us, I guess. But yeah, happy to take any questions post this or whatever.
If anyone in the audience has a question, you can click on the chat box at the bottom of your screen, and you can type a question in. If anybody has one, we're happy to take them now. In the meantime, I'll take a moment to plug our production of 100 Words for Snow by Teddy Hennessy, which we opened last week and will run through Sunday, November 1st here at Burning Coal. We only have 4 people per audience, and the tickets are all gone, but we are taking a waiting list. So if anyone would like to see it who doesn't have a ticket yet, just shoot us an email, info@burningcoal.org. And we'll be happy to try to find a way to sneak you in. We don't like it when people don't show up, because if one person doesn't attend, then we've lost 25% of our audience. So we like that waiting list, and we'll try to get as many of you in as possible. We also have a production coming up on Halloween night, a live streamed production. Sorry, that's wrong, a Zoom production of a play called Phantasmagoria, which is a Halloween show. It was originally done at La Mama, directed by Randolph Curtis Rand, who works with our company regularly and is a member of Elevator Repair Service and other companies in New York that specialize in the unusual, and Phantasmagoria will be unusual, I promise. So we're going to wrap that up now. And again, if anybody listening to this has a question, shoot us an email. And our guest today, Gemma Barnett, has graciously said that she will respond to questions. So thank you, Gemma. Thank you very much. Break a leg with the future, and be safe.
And good luck with your production. I'm so happy that it's being put on there and by a great team. So yeah.
We're having a great deal of fun with it, and I think our audiences are being very moved by the material. So
Good.
okay.
Great. Thank you for having me. See you later.
Take care.
Bye.